Moon, the new moon last week. I hope you enjoyed the last rune reading I did for you guys last week. The new moon portal has officially closed yesterday, the day of Saturn, or as we like to say it in our culture, Saturday. So here we go. So the topic today I would like to focus on is the phenomena that we call aloneness, the power of being alone, the magic of being alone, the deep insight that we gather from being alone, right? Alone, the word alone, aloneness, all oneness. And so before I get into the breakdown of this symbol here, this sigil, I took notes and then I meditated right before just to kind of make sure that what I, will be talking about is in alignment with this. I wrote my notes down, and I'll just be going down a list of thoughts and feelings that came up immediately today. Now, the word aloneness. In today's, society and our culture, all around the globe, the human collective is experiencing aloneness, isolation, being by oneself, having to deal with not having that social network, access to our social communities, having to use the synthetic web or the synthetic portal to connect with other human beings, which is, I find nothing wrong with that. I'm getting I'm learning so much during my season of aloneness right now. And so again, I find that, and one thing I love about words and English words, in any language really, I have a thing for languages, but the word aloneness, all oneness. When you are alone for an extended amount of time, whether you're, and I'm not talking about you're like it's kind of like only a day by yourself or 2 hours or a lunch break. Oh, no. I'm talking about extensive amount of time alone. We then have a chance to realize that we are part of the all and we're part of oneness. And I find that that's one of the most important things to focus on when you're alone. You're facing you're facing the I, you're facing the identity, you're facing your persona, you're facing the different masks that you wear, you're facing the future, you're facing the past, you're facing the subconscious, you're facing the consciousness of what's happening in your internal and external worlds. A lot is going on in the space of aloneness. But the most important thing, whatever energy work you do, or whatever, if you choose to read a book, if you sit in meditation, if you do artwork, if you create music, if you just sit in silence, if you something that's engaging with you. And no, watching YouTube or watching movies doesn't really count for aloneness. I'm talking about where you're just with you. And the most important thing is to recognize the power of the connection that we have with all that is. Being in the space of aloneness makes it clarifies that our relationship with oneness. It clarifies our relationship with what, when we take and peel back all the layers, our identity, our jobs, our, being a mom, being a dad, being a child, being a daughter, being a lover, being an employee, being an employer, when we strip back all those layers, what is there? You, I, us, we. And then it's so beautiful when, you get through the shadowy part of being alone, which we call loneliness, right? They take the A off. And there's lonely, Lonely, just one, just you, is just you. Right? But when you can swim through that lake, that deep, deep, bottomless lake of loneliness, and reach the bottom, and then realize and dig your way through the bottom, and then you come to the surface of something new, which is the realization that we're part of oneness, and that you're just meeting you again. I find that aloneness, when we accept the space of aloneness, it gives us a chance to recognize our connection to all, recognize our relationship to all. Because I find, for me personally, I'm going to speak personally here, I lived in a metropolitan city for the past, I moved there in late 2016, and I left 2020. So about 4 years, almost 4 years. And I never really felt so lonely and alone. And I've lived in many different places. I've traveled, not around the world, but I've definitely traveled in other countries and lived in different societies and cultures, and I've lived in cities before. My discovery is that what I find is that living in cities, for me is not a place for me. It's, for me, I feel everyone is in their own bubble, their own individual bubble, their individual reality. It's very much like everyone is so caught up in their identity that it's very hard to penetrate, that bubble. You know what I'm saying? Everyone has their personal space. Everyone has their way, their vibe, their this, their that. And I found that living in, an area where I think it was probably like 5 million, 2 to 5 million people, roughly estimating, who lived in this area, and it was just very, very difficult to create friends and make friends and to vibe with people, like to really feel like I could call that place home. And it wasn't until I moved out, way out in the country, in another place, another location, different land, similar landscapes, and in New Mexico, okay? But I live in a very rural part of it where there's cows, there's horses, there's goats, there's chickens. I mean, it's a real deal, okay? Like you come out here, there's dirt roads, you need hiking boots, you need AAA, okay? That's where I live. And so I found that I feel more centered and more clear and more at peace with myself compared to how I was living in the city. And I've noticed this a lot, quite often, where I have this tug of war, right, with the city life and the small town, quiet, rural countryside, okay? And it's like you feel like you're in my 20s. I felt like I was missing out on the world. I was missing out on everything. And so that's where I go. I go out to socialize. I buy. Consumerism. It was like more, almost like overabundance in a way, and all the wrong ways. And I come here, and the life is still, it's quiet. I can think clearly. I can hear my own shadow self. I can hear the shadow selves of their people. I can discern what's my energy and what isn't. And that's an ongoing process, by the way. I'm nowhere near a master at that. But it's still, I can really make distinctions between energies and the type of environment that is taking form in my life. And so I say all that in connection with the great I am, right? I am that I am. But yeah, I don't want to venture off too much from my notes, but the first topic I like to talk about is independence, right? We set out, we leave the small town, or we leave home. And when I mean small town, sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just when you're in a home, you can be in a home in the city, but your world is very small. And so you reach a moment in your life where you want to expand outside of that. And so you say, Mom and Dad, I'm going to college. Mom and Dad, I'm going to join Peace Corps. Mom and Dad, I'm going to go and get my own apartment. Mom and Dad, I'm going to do what I need to do to be independent. So you go out into the world, and I mean, it's so embedded in American culture as well to be independent. There's songs about it. Independent. Do you know what that means, man? Like that's real, okay? It's so like accepted to be independent, to pay your own bills, to do this and to do that. It's very masculine energy. And that's great. But I find that it's also very toxic. And living in a much smaller place, living in the rural part of, New Mexico, I've learned how important it is, and how important community is, how important, relationships are. I don't come in contact with many people at all. And it's okay. Sometimes it gets me. It gets me some days. But other times I'm like, you really get to know the people you're around, even if they drive you nuts, even if they don't have the same values or principles as you do, even if they come from completely different backgrounds, economic or educational, it doesn't matter. It gives you the chance to expand and to really get involved with the people that you're surrounded with. So, independence, right? That's a very strong, important part of evolving and maturing as a human adult. Another thing that came up was codependency. Now, I'm going to be honest. One of my issues that really, I finally accepted this. For a long while, I avoided this truth about myself of being codependent. I have codependent tendencies. I just do. Thank source that I have not gotten involved with some serious narcissists out there. They do pop in my life from time to time, but my discernment is at a level I can run away. But codependency shows up, and during this time of isolation and quarantine, all that we hide behind in our layers and layers and layers of masks and our duties and our roles that we play in this game called life, when we're now in quarantine, all that stuff is bubbling up and coming out. And it wasn't until mid to late December of 2020 it was mirrored back to me, and I finally became at peace with the fact that I have this issue. And many people have this issue to some extent. Mine is, I probably say in my life, severe. Not incredibly severe, because naturally I'm a loner type of personality, very introverted at times, but it's shown up in my life, okay, in more ways than what I like to admit, even in the way that I work. And then it's shown up in the workplace, it's shown up in my relationships, my family. I mean, it's there. And now I'm aware of it. But I bring this up to show you, you know, it's almost like independence and codependence can be, it should be interdependent, right? Meaning there's a great balance between a relationship that you have, whatever, if that's with your work, if that's with your lover, if that's with your children. But codependency can be incredibly toxic, and being independent or independence can be incredibly toxic as well. You can isolate yourself from people. And, you know, for me, with my codependency issues, I'm very extreme. So if I know that I'm in a space where I'm becoming very codependent in some way, I will go out of my way to isolate myself to a default. Okay, it turns into something that's kind of not, it's kind of negative. And so just being aware of and asking yourself ways like, in what ways can I be more independent? In what ways can I be dependent on others in a more positive way, in a balanced way? Okay, so that came up there. Another, which is very important, is your identity. Here's the really big thing I'm going to bring up right now that many of my fellow Americans and many humans all around the world are facing, especially in the Western culture, developed societies where workaholism is the way of life. If you don't have a 9 to 5, if you're not working long ass, excuse my French, long ass shifts, then your quality and your value of a person is it's lower than someone who's doing something a little bit different, or someone who is working that much. And so here's the thing. This whole I think this whole quarantine thing, I think many people are having to face the fact that their relationships they've made their relationships their identity. They've made their jobs their identity. They've made their marriages their identity. They've made the single life their identity. They've made their material possessions their identity. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And with being in the space of aloneness, you're having to ask yourself, what is the value of this thing that this identity that I claim in my space, in my reality? What is the value? You know, is it overrunning my life? Is it am I who am I? The question really at the end of the day is who am I? When you're asking yourself these very difficult questions about identity, right? And identity ties with roles, the roles you play on a day-to-day basis. You know, the world is a stage and men and women are merely players. You know, I think that's what William Shakespeare said. I forgot what play. I don't know what quote where that quote comes from, but my point is that we need to identify with something or we feel lost. We need to identify with something or someone, or we feel displaced. And with all these Americans losing their homes, losing their jobs, losing some people marriages, losing, you know, a lot of what they held dear, it's forcing, like Source is forcing us to really evaluate your identity and who you think you are, who you feel you are, how do you act, you know? I mean, it's a really big question. Who am I? Who am I? You know? So yeah, that's a thought there. So isolation, I wanted to touch on that. I'm very, very, very good at isolating myself. And I usually use isolation, and this is even before the whole, you know, quarantine and C-19 outbreak. I I used isolation as a way to heal myself, to really, there was a moment in my life where I went under such a severe heartbreak, and I'd have to label it as situational depression. It lasted for a few months, so about 3 to 5, through about roughly 4 to 5 months. And it in that time, I wasn't aware of the power of isolation. I was in the very deep, dark, shadowy, negative aspect of isolation. I ate pizza almost every day. Like, it was really bad. Like, I couldn't find any summer employment after the semester was over. This is back in college. Couldn't find any summer employment. My monies were running low. And I couldn't wash dishes. I ate, I think, I would order pizza probably every other night. I mean, it was it was a hard time for me at that time. And then a few years later, now eventually I healed, but a few years later, you know, on my path, I began to use or study the power of silence or silent fasting, where I don't speak, I don't use my phone, I don't use any Wi-Fi for a number of days. It could be from 3 to 7 days max. And it was incredibly powerful. I will go into that in another video, but to my extroverts out there that they need that external stimulation to feel centered. And I'm not going to say all extroverts are like that. I'm just saying in general. I'm generalizing right now. Give isolation a try, and I'll go into that another time in another video, when it comes to using isolation as a form of energy manipulation. Energy manipulation is just magic. We do it all the time. Okay, we do it every day. We're manipulating energy all the time. So I'll have to say, I know that there are people out there that are, they're going through this quarantine. Some of them, it's very, very difficult. They have, some people are in a very abusive relationships where they can't leave. And then don't even get me started with the children that are in situations like that they can't leave home, and so they're stuck with that type of energy in the home. My heart really goes out to them, and I want you to take a look here at the energy. So there's an energy of 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now in this situation, and how the energies are lined up in the form of the symbol, it looks balanced, but it's not. Okay, you see a man standing here, okay, and he's standing, and there's the floor, and here's the ceiling. All right, and I call this the falling ceiling and the rising floor. Now, many people, as I was saying, they are kind of stuck in a situation and they can't leave, right? And I feel that many humans right now are feeling that pressure. They're trying to push the floor with their feet, and then they're trying to push the ceiling with their hands, and it's eventually just putting more and more pressure on them. It's just going to collapse. Okay? So I want you to take a look at that and really feel compassion for yourself if you're going through this. All right? If you're sincerely going through a situation like this right now, where you just feel like you can't leave, you can't escape a situation, and that is the loneliness. That's that dark aspect of loneliness that comes through when you have nowhere to go but everywhere to go. It's almost like you're walking down the street, which would happen to me a lot. I'd be walking down the street and there'd be maybe hundreds of people. I go to a public event, in this city, and I just feel so isolated and so alone. Like I just feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much pressure. And then, or like really like relationships with people can feel like this, not just financial restraints, or not restraints, but financial constraints, but it's more relationships. I'm really feeling this right now, where you're it's like your feet you're stuck in the cement, and your your hands are just pushing, trying to push that ceiling, keeping it from collapsing on you, and you can't. Eventually it just squishes you like a bug, right? And then I'm going to turn this energy here. Look at this. Now what does that look like? H, right? The letter H. Help. I see a man here, and I see a man here, or a woman, or whoever. But I see two humans holding hands in the middle. This creates balance. There's an even give and take. But you know what? What's coming through right now is that I see two men, two people meeting, okay? Meeting halfway. And guess what? You're meeting you. You're meeting you. You're meeting your reflection. You're meeting all that is, all oneness. It's a reflection of yourself, right? When we are in this situation where there's pressure from both sides, there's no escape. Sometimes through chaos, we gain clarity, and and the mirror is clear, and we can see, oh my gosh, that's me. I'm you, right? Also, this H stands for help, right? This network, this lifeline here. Because without it, you're reaching out, trying to grasp at anything. And believe me, you reach far enough, you'll grab anything, okay? That anything will grab you, so be careful, okay? You know, sometimes when we're in this space, we can get incredibly, what's the word? Desperate, okay? And I've been in that space. That's the dark aspect, that shadow aspect of loneliness. When you do get some kind of lifeline, because that energy, remember the energy vortex I was speaking on, which I'll talk about in another video, but the energy vortex, you put out like, I'm lonely, I'm so alone, I just feel so, I'm so isolated, no one loves me. And you will meet someone of the same energy. You see, they're identical to each other, so you will meet your reflection. So be aware. I'm not saying run away from your feelings. Please don't. Allow whatever nasty, dark shit that comes up, okay? You know, lack of self-worth, no confidence, pity party, you know, talking down on yourself, all this stuff, let it out, express it, but don't get stuck there, because when you will get stuck and get grounded in this, and then you're going to feel this. This is your mental power, okay? All right? And then this is what you are manifesting. But if you feel stuck and trying to manifest, and you have so much anxiety, and just, I can't create anything. I don't have enough of this, I don't have enough of that. And then your thoughts also reflect what's going on here. Everything is connected. So I just wanted to really point that out. Okay, one more or a couple more points, and then I'm gonna pull two runes today. Let's see here. Okay. So there are a couple of things I want to talk about: the external realities, okay, or external opposition and internal opposition. I'm going to start with the internal first. So you're probably like, well, what are you talking about, internal opposition? I don't understand. So you see here, there's a wall, okay? There's just a wall. Then you see an open space here, open space here. Here, just imagine that this is your future that you're looking out. You're looking out here into all the possibilities of what could be. Here, you're looking into the past, okay? When you're in the space of aloneness, you have the power to observe both realms. Yes, the future is a realm, the past is a realm. We visit there all the time, okay? Whether we like it or not. And then here's your present. And a lot of us do this crazy dance of revisiting the past, then going into the future, then revisiting the past, and going into the future. As you can see, I'm making this energy loop called infinity, okay? So we enter in this cycle, the figure 8, okay, of future, past, future, past, future, past. Meanwhile, there's all this going on in our physical reality. There's all this going on in our spiritual realm, and we're just kind of like lost in between these two realms, and we lose that connection. We lose the connection to the present, and it's critical. It's critical that you observe yourself in the present moment. You stay grounded in the reality, okay, and in a balanced way, all right? And you are allow what the dreams, the visions, consciousness, be aware of what you're letting pouring into your present moment. We get caught up in the past. Well, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I shoulda did this. I shoulda married that person. I shoulda moved over here. I shoulda took that job. I shoulda this. They never should have done that to me. I never should have said that to them. And then in the future, oh, what will happen over here? What if I did this? What if I did that? What if I go over here? What if I go? What if I go? All that all that internal chatter, it creates that it's an energy vortex of that infinity, right? People think infinity is an amazing concept, but I'll go into that in another day. But it's this loop. It just keeps going and building, and it strengthens. And then when you are in isolation, you realize you have the power, okay, to realize what's going on. You are like, oh my gosh, I'm too occupied in the future. And you don't make any plans because you're too effed up from what happened in the past. And you realize, oh wait, but I have my present. What's happening right now? What's happening right now? And that's what I want you, or would like you to ask yourself. What is your relationship with the cycle, the energy vortex of the future, past, future, past, future, past, future, past? One more thing. Now the external opposition. Okay, so I'm saying opposing forces. Okay, now that's what I mean by opposition. So you have your. This is, just imagine that this is your waking world, or your conscious world, your physical world. You get up in the morning, your daily routines, you go to work, you do the work, come back, you eat meals, you watch some videos, you watch this, you do that, you meditate, you blah 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 blah. Okay, and when I say meditation, even your spiritual work is in the physical realm. All right, then you have your internal. So this is your external world, and then this is your internal world. This is your subconscious mind, your deeper parts of yourself that bubble up to the surface in weird ways, okay? And your thoughts and feelings and actions. And here, I was gonna say, when you're in isolation, it's a pivotal time to use your discernment, okay? Because in this time, and again, my hearts go out to people that are in situations and energies that are very, very abusive. And, your escapism is your internal world. I remember when I was a child going through some hard times, I would escape through like my mind and through dreams and through books and imagination, anything to kind of mute what was happening on the surface. And then there are people who run away from this. They run away from the internal world. They will self-sabotage, and they will block out all the secret things, shadowy things about themselves, and they will only focus on the duties of being human. They don't want to investigate the things, their feelings. They don't want to investigate the subconscious. They don't want to investigate their behaviors and why they do what they do. All they know that here, they just do what they do because they do it. And I find that in this isolation, you have the power to investigate this, your internal world, and on how it can how it's affecting your external world. Also, the most critical important thing, again, I'm going to look at this energy of the two men shaking hands in the middle. When everyone is in this space of isolation so that they can get their shit together, okay? Like, that's just the general that's the easy way of saying it, of really making sure that you know your values, know your principles. When it is time to collaborate with people, I find that in the 2020s and beyond, your values and principles must be in alignment with the people that you surround yourself with. If not, I find that the human collective is going to be a struggle, because if you're shaking hands with the wrong energy, and your internal worlds aren't in alignment, your values are all confused and soupy, they shift from one day to another, all over the place, it's going to really, really cause, you're going to have to question the integrity and sincerity and genuineness of the connections that you make with people if your values aren't in alignment, okay? Now, I'm not saying you can't, be chill and, and whatever with individuals that have different creeds or different beliefs or different, ways of doing things. But I find that really in this decade and beyond, it's just going to be I'm witnessing this already, that more and more people are gravitating towards their tribes, okay? They're gravitating towards exactly where they need to be with the right energy, with the right people. And it doesn't matter where your frequency is or where you're vibrating. You could be vibrating incredibly high and with all these very spiritually enlightened people, or just, you don't have to be spiritual, just, like, for example, I try to keep everything politically free on my channel, but as you can see, what's happening in the country, you have like this whole massive group of people that have the same foundation of like values and principles and how they perceive their reality, and so they all gather together, and then there are consequences of that, right? And then you have other people that are not really in the limelight, but you have, let's say, people who are homesteading, people who are growing their own food, people who are creating these networks for like-minded people, using social media, using their art and their creativity. And in the 2020s, you're going to see this beautiful, the energy vortex is going to activate, okay? It's going to really, really, really be very profound. So anyway, I just really want to stress that you will meet everything will be reflected to you. So wherever you're vibrating here in your isolation, okay, it's going to continue, okay? And you can change it. You can definitely change the vibe. You definitely can. But this, in the coming months here, right now, all of it, everything's going to be reflected back to you. It'll be a helping hand or a hindering one. Have you ever played that game where you hold hands? I forgot what game the name of that game is, but you're holding hands. I'll explain to you. I see two men holding each other like this with both their arms and their hands, and they start spinning around. And one of them, if one is weak over time, then that one will let go and fall off. That's what you don't want to happen. Because if you're giving off a reflection of a certain vibration that's not in alignment of you, you're going to attract that same thing, and that thing might just throw you off. You see how they're holding hands now? Just imagine if it's not in alignment for you, he's gonna end up just throwing you off into like the abyss. Like think of the abyss in space, and you're just like wondering, like what happened? You know, like what happened to me? So be mindful of that. Or you're gonna find someone who's even killed, and you mesh very well with them, and you meet in the middle and you balance that out. You're both grounded, your mental state, mentally, consciously grounded and centered. You meet in the middle and magical things happen. So that's my reading for this. I'm going to pull 2 runes. I'm going to dive deep in this one now a little bit. This is for the future. Oh, okay. And this is for the past. Okay. And this is for, the present. Here we go. So for the present, I got the, it's getting dark outside. Here we go. I don't know if you can see it. You might have to zoom in a little bit. I'm just going to whoop. Okay. It's a circle, and then it has 2 lines going down the middle of it. So it's a broken circle, but there's a new path in the middle. And then for the future, I have the serpent, or the Kundalini energy. Okay. That's very, very, very beautiful with that placement. And then I have the serpent's eyes. Ooh. Okay, so there's serpent energy here. Serpent energy is very, 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 very powerful. Why? Because it's, sexual, fire, passion, sensual, very, very, very powerful life force energy. So pretty much the energy of manifestation. And so here, in this new path, in the present moment, create your new path, people, okay? And know that all that you wish and desire to create will manifest if used correctly, okay? The spiral is like that Reiki, like chi energy, okay? Moving forward, entering into a new cycle. And then the eye. Okay, so the serpent eye it means great observation. Look back, okay, to learn what not to do. Look back to learn what to do. But don't become the past. Don't allow the eye. This kind of reminds me of the eye from Lord of the Rings. And, the all-seeing eye, which is really weird, okay? But the all-seeing eye, and that eye was creepy, okay? That eye creeped me out as a kid when I watched that movie. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to look back in the past with despair. You can look back and say, oh, yeah, that happened. You can revisit moments. You can jump timelines and say, let me revisit this again. I think there's something there, right? So that is that. I'm going to wrap up the reading. Thank you so much if you made it through over 40 minutes of sitting with me. I will be giving rune readings, Silvertree rune readings every Wednesday, the day of Mercury. Okay, Mercury is I believe the Greek god of giving messages, and so that's why I chose Wednesday, which I'll go into the days of the week and the names, the ancient and ancient meanings of the names of the days of the week. It's very deep, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Seven Bomar for that, because it's very profound when I bumped into that. But yes, so next Wednesday or every Wednesday from here on out, and then I might just squeeze in some random readings too, here and there. But I look forward in your comments. This is a very new channel. If you resonate with it, please go ahead and join me. Thank you so much. Bye.